Well, here we are again, and my efforts to not just be a commentator on the drama that's going on seem to be completely dying on their arse, because here I am commentating on the drama that's going on. So, yeah, you might remember a couple of weeks ago, like literally 2 weeks ago, I released a video about some guy allegedly being an industry plant who was speedrunning the fandom, and how I did the research and figured out that maybe his intention of joining this thing was actually not as bad as people were making out. And that obviously put me in a certain box in terms of how I think about this person, feel about this person, or at least it does to the people that watch the video. Because apparently since then, some stuff has happened, and because I made a video being like, actually, maybe he is just looking to join the fandom, that apparently might accidentally conflate it with me being a defender. And I was like, well, I didn't know that shit had happened, so let's go and have a look and see what shit happened, and do what I do, and do the research, and come with an informed opinion that probably doesn't truly matter, but also people are looking to put some words in this doggo's mouth, and no. So I went and had a little look, and here we are. Now, before we dive into this video, which is probably going to be just as fucking long, like 20 goddamn minutes, I do want to just state for the record a couple of things. First of all, I still have had like no contact with this guy. I have had some contact. So after the last video, he boosted it on social media across a couple of places. We ended up following each other because I was like, well, kind of rude not to, I guess. Just made fucking content about you, so there you go. And yeah, we messaged, but barely messaged, as you can see. Like, I had a dumb idea because people were making up a lot of rumors about him, and I was like, see what else they can believe. And I think I commented like twice about him showing the feet for free, because that's my goddamn brand. Let's be real. But beyond that, we've not really messaged, we've not really spoken, and that's absolutely okay. You know, not like everybody has to be my best friend. I'm not a fucking teenager who still thinks that way. So I'm not doing this on behalf of him. I'm not doing this because he's a bestie and I'm coming for his defense. I'm doing this because I started a conversation and then I walked away from the conversation, and now the conversation has continued, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me just clarify. And that's what this video is hopefully going to be about. But let's dive into it and find out if I succeeded in that. So the main reason this video is getting made is because of this comment from this guy on my YouTube page. Because I made a video about it and I didn't really think about the situation all that much since. And that was like, oh shit, has something happened? And then I looked into it and something happened. And obviously following that comment's advice and just going to see exactly whether or not my video did age well, I found a whole load of other shit that's happened since. I found that there's potentially right-wing attachment, DHC attachment, and a generally pretty weird way of dealing with people. There's also a fursuit raffle and a little bit of flaunting the wealth going on. Which is funny because I did a video on that. And it generally just seemed like, oh, okay, this situation got pretty big pretty quick. And, you know, I tried to just talk about a situation in my last video about, you know, this is how we got here, and I think his intentions are this. And then we're seeing the action afterwards, and like, oh, okay, maybe I need to come back and clarify my point, and that's kind of why we're here now. So what exactly is the point of this video? Is this a defense of what I said? Is this a U-turn? Am I actually working for this guy? Am I also an industry plant? No. It's a little bit more complex than that, I guess. Let's just find out. A very wise and very close friend of mine once said, give every single person you meet a blank slate and only judge them by what they write upon that slate. Basically meaning, give everybody the benefit of the doubt to any preconceptions you've got about them and only judge them by your own personal experiences and how they treat you. Pretty simple, good, fucking honest critique right there, right? Really good advice. Now, I very strongly believe in this advice and this point, and I saw a hell of a lot of conflated bullshit and preconceptions being spewed about this guy, and was like, I'm going to do some research into that. I'm going to have a little look at whether or not this is true, and I'm going to clean the slate, and I'm going to figure out for myself exactly what this is, and that's maybe what I could do as a video. In fact, is that what it could turn into? Now, I stand by what I did in that other video. I looked at all the information I could, I got all the information at hand and made a judgment based on all of that information, and I feel like I was pretty fair about that. I feel like I did my research, and I feel like we gave him that blank slate with that video. That's exactly how it was in my mind. I blanked the slate and was like, here you go, write on it. Then he did. So far, it's been what's been written on that slate, his actions after all of that stuff, which is actually the main focus of stuff. Because to begin with, it could easily be put down to jealousy, to just being a bit butthurt that he's doing so well, to being a bit misunderstood and scared of old stuff. But now, this is his genuine actions and the things that he's doing that people are reacting to. And it's not a matter of their perception of something that's happening, but it's more what they're reacting to is the actual issue. Because we cleaned the slate for you, dude. But then you started writing on it. And you will be judged by that writing, which is what's been going on. Now, we got ourselves a very left-leaning fandom here, and I don't think I'm wrong in saying that, especially considering we have a high proportion of LGBTQIA that will very much see the right wing as the enemy, and it's pretty hard to sort of say that that's a bad thing, especially considering the whole scrubbing of the LGBTQIA down to LGB that we're seeing, the erosion of rights and transgender rights being taken away, and us generally always being scapegoated for this culture war they insist. And yeah, it's pretty easy to determine why there's such a vitriolic hatred between the two parties here. Now, of course, that is exactly what they want. They love a good culture war that keeps pitting left versus right, because if we're focused on fighting each other, we're not fighting the people who are actually causing our problems, and they cannot have us doing down versus up instead of left versus right, because then we start to enact actual change that would benefit our lives, and they're terrified of when shit like that happens. Isn't that right, Luigi? Anyway, that's an entirely separate fucking point in video. Now, there's a few little points of evidence that sort of got people thinking that he is a supporter of the right-wing ideologies and Trump, and they are as followed. An alleged Discord message that's pretty fucking damning if it is indeed true. We also have his partner being a little bit pro-Trump. We have the fact that he hangs around with people that are apparently very pro-Trump as well, and there is also the fact that his accounts do follow Trump. Now, I'm just going to knock that last one out nice and quick and easy. I think we're all pretty safe to say that following someone is not an endorsement of someone. A lot of people just choose to stay involved or just choose to stay aware of what's been going on, and that means following. It doesn't mean that they're financially supporting or anything like that. But I do fully understand how you're going to sort of think like, well, you follow him, so you must like him, and you're pretty valid in that, to be fair, because I get it, I totally do, and I'm not saying you're wrong about that, I'm just saying it might not be the biggest piece of evidence that you think it is. So, of course, the thing about his partner being ex-military and also a cop is, yeah, that's true, yeah, his partner is an ex-military and is also a cop and reportedly voted for Trump. Well, did he? Because there's the voting record, and that states that he is an active voter and that his party that he's registered for is Republican. But that doesn't mean that's who he voted for. There's actually a lot of people that do engage in trying to flout gerrymandering, for instance. Famous drag queen Silky Nutmeg Nash is a registered Republican for exactly that reason. So just because they're registered as a Republican and they're an active voter does not mean that that's what they vote for. Now, I totally understand why you would think that. I totally understand why you would connect those dots, but it doesn't mean what you think it means 100%. 90, 95, potentially, but 100, no. Of course, that's only half the issue, especially when the fact that he is a cop and that they've kind of made some points about cops, that people in this fandom hate cops, and, oh, but who are you going to call when you have trouble? I'm like, okay, first of all, we can still hate a system just because we participate in it, especially when there's no fucking alternative, okay? Second of all, I hate using the word privilege because of all of the people that use it for varying reasons and exactly the assumptions people put on you when you bring it out, but this is indicative of privilege, okay? You seem to be a bit blind as to the general perception of police. Do the words Breonna Taylor mean anything to you? Huh? Because I don't think we need to go back over all of that, but I was really hoping that lesson would stick for at least longer than fucking 5 or 6 years. So the general perception of police abusing their power and being very right-wing, authoritarian, jackbooted fucking thugs is a hard one to fight. And when you're pro-police in a fandom that's very ACAB, yeah, no wonder people are going to be at odds with you. Now, it was interesting during all of this to see him bringing up the point that obviously, oh, is it a good thing to just cut someone off because of your political beliefs differing with theirs? And that's a very interesting thing when you look at it, because the two sides of the argument are very simple. It's, we exist and we deserve to live freely, and no, you don't. And I don't really give a shit if it makes me a hypocrite, a bigot, intolerant, or what. I don't really think you get a right to sit on the fence there. I don't really think you have a right to just sit in the middle and play devil's advocate, okay? There's people who want to live their lives and other people who say no, because of my comfort and my personal beliefs, fuck you and your lives. And we're seeing that being enacted across legislatives. We're seeing laws come in and shit, okay? You don't really get to fucking play that game, especially in a fandom like this. Now, of course, one of the big pieces of evidence is this alleged screenshot of a Discord message that is pretty fucking bad and damning, but I'm going to be real, I really don't know what to say about it, because there's a lot of things missing, like the context, but also any evidence one way or the other of whether it's real or not. And I've seen people have done various checks, but they've pretty much just told us that they've done checks without showing us how they did that. It is potentially very easy to fake a message like this, especially these days with AI. But it's also very easy for you to just get your shit leaked if you actually are saying shit like this. This could also just be a bad example of edgy humor where you're making a dumb joke. Considering we're not seeing the rest of the chat, there is the potential for that. I'm not defending this. I'm not excusing it. I'm not giving reasons why we can debunk it. All I'm saying is that there's a hell of a lot of shit it could be, as well as what it very clearly looks like it is. So it's very hard to take this into account when we're not really seeing an awful lot about it, and I'm not smart enough. I tried to do some photo shit to try and figure out if it's real or fake. I'm just not smart enough to do that, and I couldn't quite figure it out on my own, so maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but it's kind of hard to take into account this sort of thing. Obviously, if it's real, it's fucking reprehensible, and this guy has completely shown his hand, and that's pretty much game over, because you don't really get to say shit like that and it be okay. So that means bye-bye time. But until we have evidence and proof one way or another, it's a little bit, it's just a bit hard to kind of go with. Now, the way that he's fought back against this sort of stuff is a little bit questionable, because he's not really fought back about it. He said that it's not true, but that's about it. You're not really offering anything to really change people's minds. You're just saying no, rather than no because. And it's that because that's the real important part. Now, if somebody was to accuse me of saying something so fucking vitriolic like this, I would definitely be sharing my side of that conversation if it existed, or I'd be doing everything possible to convince people of the truth that it is in fact bullshit. I wouldn't just say, actually it can just be faked, and think that that's enough, okay? That's pretty fucking dumb. And the fact that you're not doing that is pretty logical to think, well, why aren't you doing that? Is it because you can't? Is it because maybe it's actually true? And I get that that's taking a little bit of a leap, but that is what he's facing. And when you have these associations with people who are also a bit pro-Trump and everything, it's very difficult to combine all of this shit together and still play the whole, no, I don't agree with that, when you're clearly tolerant of it. And us, in this fandom, we fucking ain't, because we know where that tolerance leads. Tolerance leads to acceptance, and acceptance leads to normalization. Normalization leads to, oh shit, where the fuck we are in the world right now, okay? We don't do that shit. Now, I gotta admit, I find it absolutely fucking hilarious that I made a video about all of the ways I hate people making content purely to get numbers. All of the shitty, shady little tricks of playing the system that will help you boost your following. And not 24 hours after I took the piss out of people doing fursuit raffles to get followers, he does a fursuit raffle. And when I make a point about people just using sex to gain a following and doing that, he makes an AD account. And then when I claim that it's a bit gauche, they used that word, even put a definition up. When I said it was gauche, you'd flaunt your wealth and show just how much money you've got to spend on stuff, and that spending money on things is a really good way to get followers, he does that. And I'm just like, God fucking damn it. Jesus Christ, are you trying to prove me right? Because, I mean, thank you. You're making me look goddamn psychic, but this was supposed to be satire and funny, not a fucking roadmap. Of course, this is only the tip of the fucking baiting iceberg, isn't it? Because we've seen way more than just those things been going on. In fact, it's been a very constant slew. It's been very rehearsed. It's been a pretty consistent pattern. More consistent than I think we're used to. And maybe that's part of the reason people don't like it so much. It feels way more stage managed and just generally managed than most furries tend to treat their content. But we're seeing a hell of a lot of it. And it kind of went from 6 to midnight real fucking fast. Oh wait, that's an innuendo. Oh my god, that works. Now, we've seen this before with furries who do something pretty fucked up and then try and back out of it by just bombing the shit out of their profile with all of this extra content. We're talking pictures, artwork, replies, comments, all of this positive stuff. Because not only does it drown out all of the noise that people are making about you, but it gives people the opposite impression. No, look how positive I'm being. No, look how I'm just acting as if everything's normal. None of that really matters, when really it's just the blanket you're trying to hold over the bonfire that's burning behind you, and we can all smell the smoke. Now, it's this particular brand of baiting, basically, this engagement baiting, that is really a lot of the problem. And I think it comes from a place of soullessness. That's not to say that what he's doing is soulless, but that's how it's being received. We like people to be who they are. And this just seems very by the numbers, very stereotypical, very placeholder kind of content that's not indicative of who you are as a person, or that you really have anything unique to say. It's very cookie cutter and sort of cold almost, and that doesn't really help your case. And there's nothing explicitly wrong about that on its own, but this is not on its own. And when that's combined with bad vibes and other things that people are reacting negatively to, then it just becomes a massive topping on this shitty pizza that you're kind of cooking up for yourself here, dude. And, I mean, it's not exactly your fault people have these preconceptions, but then when they have those preconceptions and you meet them and you kind of deliver to those, then there's not really much of a defense left, is there? Especially when a lot of this started as bad vibes and has just continued to reinforce the bad vibes. Now, another reason I've seen people just generally not like this guy is because of the bad vibes. They just get a bad sense from him, and they're using the sort of rhetoric of, I've been around in this fandom for a very long time, and you just learn to see the warning signs, and I get those from this person. And to those people, I say, me too. I did too. Yeah, no, I totally fucking get it. I totally understand it. You learn to see those sort of patterns and recognize them. The only difference really is that I am a pessimist and I am a cynic and I have a long history of treating people with a preconception that puts them in a negative space. And it's only when I dropped that shit got better in my life. So I fight it. So I get it, but I'm a self-confessed fucking cynic. So I kind of thought maybe I'm just being an ass. Maybe this time I wasn't. We're finding that out. But here's the thing. Regardless of whether or not those bad vibes were applicable or valid, it really doesn't matter. Those are the bad vibes that you've got, and it's your response to them that makes or breaks you, basically. He was put in a pretty negative position of, this is what we're expecting you to be like. I hope you're not that. And he kind of was. He kind of did those things. He kind of acted in the ways that people don't like, that they assumed he was going to act in. And that's a problem. And it's very difficult, though. I mean, I'll give him that. He was in such a position that he would not just have to act normally, but have to go the complete opposite direction to get rid of these accusations. Otherwise, they just sit and follow him forever. But he kind of played into it, and I'm not trying to defend him, but even if I was, it's very hard to defend him on that, because if I was to say to you, let's say that I made a video about all of the shit I hate people doing just to make followers, oh wait, I did, and then he went and did those things, I can't just U-turn and say, oh yeah, well maybe. Nah, he did that shit, and I hate that shit, therefore I hate that he did that shit, and I hate that shit that he did. That's just how it fucking goes. If I hate mustard, it doesn't matter if my lovely, wonderful husband cooks up a gourmet batch of mustard. It's still something I fucking hate. And this is where you have a sort of problem with this stuff. When people already had these bad vibes about you, and then that goes in with interacting with DHC suitors, who we don't fucking do because of all the shit DHC did, which you can look up, because I don't want to fucking go over that again. And then this right-wing stuff that's coming in, and then this sort of pro-cop angle as well, and you throw it all into one big mixing pot, and it's like, wow, damn. You had every chance to change our mind, and you haven't. We gave you a blank slate, but you chose to write this on it. You chose to write this on it, is the correct grammar. And now that's... this isn't like perception, this is also just what you're doing and acting like, and... well, that's what we're gonna fucking judge you on. Honestly, it's kind of funny, because when you look at the, allegations that were against him with speedrunning the fandom, I'm like, fuck, maybe he is. Like, he had the meteoric rise nice and quick, and then he's had the crash back down to earth just as fucking quick. And if you recap the sort of things that he's been doing, like, interacting with problematic fursuiters and fursuit makers and right-wing allegations and engagement bait that people generally don't tend to look positively on in this fandom, and other little allegations that have come along the way, it's like, wow, it's almost the exact same thing that happens to most popular furry creators. So maybe the speedrunning thing had some fucking merit after all, huh? Now, I will say that people did definitely come into this with these preconceptions of this guy. They didn't like him, they didn't want to like him, and they were determined to not like him. And that's just a thing that happens with humans, unfortunately. You have this idea in your head, and you start to form a confirmation bias, and pretty soon you're linking evidence to support that. You just get more entrenched. And I do think a lot of that has happened, but the problem is, some of that stuff, they were like, I think he's like this. Turned out, oh, he could be. We're seeing a little bit of evidence that maybe he is. And now this thing that you did not like, independently of him, is being exhibited by him, and it's reinforcing why you maybe had these bad vibes. And that is kind of understandable. Now, there is a lot of I heard going on, and as you might have seen in this video, hopefully, I've tried to research things as best I can. I've tried to give it the most balanced viewpoint I can with what's actually got evidence and what doesn't. And when I see people like, oh, he's interacting with zoophiles. Okay, I've not been able to find any evidence of that. I've not been able to see a single goddamn thing about that. So I ain't gonna talk about it. Because we can all say I heard doesn't mean that any of it's fucking true. And people do have these preconceptions and are just looking to generally reinforce their standpoint on this. And yeah, that's just how online shit works. Everybody makes shit up all the fucking time. It's just some of this stuff potentially isn't made up and is potentially fucking true. Now, maybe the other online communities in which this guy has interacted are much more forgiving and less, prone to drama, I guess, as the furry fandom, but we're a very protected bunch because we are the marginalized in society. This is a safe haven for those who just don't tend to fit in with normie society. And because we're that safe haven, allegedly, we tend to be targeted quite a bit, which makes us very protective of ourselves. And it also means we're very good at seeing the warning signs and saying, oh, no, not that, not you. And honestly, I feel like a lot of his crime is potentially just not really truly understanding the community that he's getting himself involved in. He seems very misguided and mistaken, and just he doesn't truly really get what exactly he's entering into here. And I don't like using the word privilege because of all the negative connotations that have been forced against it, but honestly, it's the word that fits. He seems to have a certain level of privilege that is clouding his worldview when it comes to this fandom. You can have these, you know, middle of the fucking road opinions about politics and policing when it doesn't directly affect you. But for the people in this fandom, it very much fucking does. And when you try and play middle of the road, we all sit here and say, shut the fuck up, okay? And there's not really any getting away from that. This is not a place for maybe we'll hear the right-wingers out, especially with how things are going right now. So what exactly do I personally think about it? Well, I personally think what I just said. You know, he just doesn't seem to have a total awareness of what he's stepping into and what exactly that means. And I feel everybody who comes into the fandom has that. The difference is when we go through that period of fully understanding what this fandom is, we got like 20 followers tops. And then by the time we're through that, we can actually start to make a following. This guy's doing it with like 18K on Twitter and way more everywhere else. So which means all of his little mistakes, all of his learning curves are under a microscope. And honestly, we don't really have a lot of room for that. If your business is predicated on engagement, on followers, on likes and shares and subs and all of that shit, it's very much in your interest to get the biggest spread of that as possible. But if you're still learning stuff and making mistakes, then that just means that that's going to become potentially fatal to your career here. Furries are not always that forgiving. And when you fuck up in certain ways, or you generally paint yourself as a certain type of person, then they're going to remember that. And that'll be what you are forever, whether it's true or not. And I think ultimately that's what it all comes down to. My first video and my first point was, guys, let's give this guy a blank slate, okay? You've all decided that he's something, and I don't like that, because you don't know that. I've done the research, and this is what I've come up with. And I'm not telling you that what I've done is correct. What I'm telling you is you should be doing the research too. Problem is, when he had that blank slate, he started writing on it. And this is no longer about, is he an industry plant? This is no longer about, is he speedrunning the fandom? This is now about what he has written on that slate. All of that stuff's in the background now. All of that's done. That was last week's news. Now it's about what you've done since. And in a fandom like this, where you want to live out loud and you want to build your following and all of that jazz, then this is the sort of stuff that happens. If you have opinions that clash, and everyone's going to be tolerant to that. And I don't really know the guy personally. I can only see what I see online. There's a lot of stuff that's missing context and all of that jazz. Generally, the vibe I get is that this style of content, regardless of where it is, not to my personal tastes. It's why I don't interact with it that much. It's why I largely don't really watch a lot of YouTube outside of blacksmithing videos, because I fucking love those. And it's just not for me. So when someone exhibits that, regardless of who the fuck they are, I'm like, cool. Yeah, you do that, but not for me. You know, I don't hate it. I'm not against it. But when I see the stupid mistakes that are being made, I'm just like, wow, yeah, that tracks. Like, okay, yeah. And, you know, hence this video, because I don't want it to be that I've tried to defend this guy. I don't want it to be that, you know, you can form an opinion of my opinion of this guy. And I don't really want words being put into my mouth. So here we are with me deciding to do the research again and come through with it. I will also just want to point out a little note that largely, how much does this matter? Because essentially he is just a person just doing his thing. And sometimes it really is just a matter of, it's not really necessary to give a fuck. Like, you can't just block and move on. You can just ignore. You can just scroll on past. And I get that obviously he's trying to be a big part of the fandom. He's trying to do what he did outside of it, inside of it. And he can't really do what worked in another community and this community, because it is very different. And it is kind of all over the place. But, you know, we all make mistakes. And we all have these issues, but even when these are not mistakes, even when he is someone who potentially, let's say for instance, yeah, he supported Trump and he still does, and all of the stuff that you're saying about him is correct. Let's just hypothetically say right now that's the case for this example. What does it matter to you personally? Does it really impact much? Because you're not watching his content now, and seeing all of that stuff become true would just mean that you continue to not watch his content, right? So you don't really get to control who is and isn't a part of the fandom. You don't have the power to, you know, judge that they should not be allowed in this thing. So it doesn't really change an awful lot. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have an opinion and you shouldn't feel the way you feel, but I'm just saying let's keep things in perspective a little bit. Because if he is the biggest piece of shit we've ever seen, or he is the best thing that happened to furry, his interaction with you in your life is probably going to be around the same, which is minimal to nil. And there's a lot more importance being put on this than perhaps there really should be. Like, maybe we should focus on some of the bigger issues, or maybe we should just stop doom scrolling. I don't want to just say that your feelings aren't valid. I'm just saying keep a little perspective, because when you look into some of this stuff, and I did my little research, and I'm like, does it really matter? There's loads of people these days who are massive pieces of shit, and even against them, he doesn't seem to be. He just seems to have been a little bit shitty here and there. So yeah, there's my 2 cents. Am I right? Am I wrong? This is all just my opinion. This is all just the conclusions I've come to based on the evidence that I found. I could be very wrong. I said that in the last video. I'm saying it again now. I could be the wrongest motherfucker in the world. And that's okay. What do you think? What does it matter to you? Are you tired of seeing this? I think we all kind of get into that point. Let me know. If you want to follow me on other places, then do that. There's links. I'm not going to stand here and advertise that for too long. It's been a long fucking video already. But thank you for watching, I guess. Let's hope this is the last time we need to talk about this, and that the next 2 weeks it all just dies down rather than explodes. But there we go.